Hello, my beautiful art family, and thank you for joining me today for Sketchbook Sunday, episode 24. Before I get into the subject I want to talk about, if this is the first time you are on my channel, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I have this video series called Sketchbook Sunday where I draw and paint and basically let myself play in my sketchbook and experiment with art just for fun while I talk to you guys about various things. The art in these Sketchbook Sunday videos is not meant to impress anyone. It's more of an artist crutch, if you will, or like a form of therapy and relaxation for me. So if you would like to see some of my serious work where I spend days, weeks, and months working on oil paintings, please check out the rest of my channel because there are over 100 of those kinds of videos that collectively took me many thousands of hours to produce, and I really appreciate you guys checking them out. So back to the topic at hand, I wanted to talk about how to come up with ideas for paintings. This is something that a lot of artists struggle with, myself included, but I tend to struggle with this nowadays so much less than I used to. Of course, I can only share what helps me from my own experience as an artist. I don't know what your process is like, what you're like as an individual, what you've gone through, what you like to paint, and all the little details that come together to make an artist. I don't know that about you, so you're gonna have to experiment and figure things out on your own. However, if sharing my experience and making this video can help someone or inspire anyone in the slightest if they're struggling, that would be amazing, and that's why I'm doing it. So in my case, I like to plan out paintings ahead of time, and that is something that really helps me stay consistent in my process and continue coming up with ideas. I tend to find a subject I'm interested in, whether it's a certain kind of lighting, a certain color palette, a subject, and I conceptualize by sketching, by doing studies of the subject, much like you're watching me paint right now. I basically just practice a whole lot. This really gives you a feel for some of the things you want to create without having to commit to a huge polished painting. I also find that I get so many more ideas when I'm actually painting than when I'm not painting. Something about being in that flow state really gets your mind engaged. As you're spreading paint on the canvas, you just come up with new ideas. I'm not sure why it works, but it tends to work this way for me. So a lot of my paintings I get ideas for as I'm already working on other paintings. Now, when it does come to creating real, much more heavy-duty polished paintings, the idea for them usually starts in my mind, of course. I have an image in my head that I would like to paint. I have the colors planned out. I have the general idea for the lighting I want to portray, the feeling that I'm inspired by. And so the next step is to plan this out digitally because the idea in my mind is not as detailed as I want it to be. It's kind of fading and a bit blurry. It even changes sometimes. And there are some steps that I take in order to get to the final image. Firstly, I compile reference images, and because I like my work to be my own, I prefer to be original and never having existed before, I use my own photography as reference. I ask my friends to model for me and I photograph them, or if they are unavailable, I just use myself. These aren't intended to be self-portraits unless I specifically title them self-portrait, which I never have and I probably won't. The only painting that I have ever titled a self-portrait is this one. Sometimes when I reference myself for a painting, a lot of people call it self-portrait, and I really don't like that because it's not meant to portray me. It's meant to portray a feeling, an expression of something in my mind, an expression of an idea. Just like anybody else that I paint, I don't title it after their name. I title the painting based on an idea that I have about the painting or a feeling, which that person was a vehicle in helping me bring that idea to life. So it kind of peeves me when people see paintings that look like me and immediately they're like, oh, it's a self-portrait, but it's not at all. So yeah. My work is also very heavily inspired by nature. I tend to incorporate that into my work very often, and using Photoshop, I digitally splice, map out, and conceptualize what I would like the final painting to look like. So I combine all of these different reference images and I change things, I warp things and make things way different than what they actually were. So the goal is never to copy a photograph exactly as it is. It's more to use it as a stepping stone, a tool to help me get to something that's closest to the image in my mind. And once I'm happy with it, once it resembles the original idea I had in my head, that is when I start painting. I think having reference material at your disposal is very important to coming up with ideas for paintings, especially if you're going for something realistic, because you have things to work with when you're stuck and when your mind alone can't conjure anything worthwhile, so you refer to your tools to help you. So think of what you like and what you find beautiful, what inspires you when you look at it. That's how you know you should probably paint it at some point. And if you didn't enjoy painting the subject you chose, if it wasn't as interesting to observe as you thought it would be, you still learned something new. You had practice with painting the subject, and you also learned that you didn't enjoy painting it. So move on from that, move forward, and try something else. The point is to continue exploring and experimenting on a regular basis as much as you can, and it's also not bad to work in themes and create different variations of the same subject. I do this a lot, as you guys know. I love incorporating elements of nature in my work, such as plants of many kinds, florals for example. I do this so much. You would think I would have gotten sick of it by now, but I'm not, because it makes me happy. So I have files upon files of reference material on my computer and on my external hard drive and all these memory cards. I take so many pictures, and I do this almost every day. Basically anything I find beautiful, whether it's a shadow or a flower or a landscape or a building, a person, an eye, anything. If in that moment I think this is beautiful, I try to snap a picture, and maybe I'm not going to want to paint it immediately, but I take that step in the moment to document the subject that I notice that makes a spark go off in my head while I'm in that moment, because maybe sometime later, whether it's a few days from now, a few weeks from now, or even a few years from now, I might look back on that. I might find it in my reference toolbox, and I might actually get the idea to incorporate it into a painting somehow. So I tried to do something today that my future self might thank me for, I guess. So that was just kind of a brief run through of the very basic foundation of what helps me continue making paintings and coming up with ideas. It's really just all about being attentive and paying attention to your surroundings, knowing what you enjoy painting, what inspires you and makes you, I don't know, happy. Also, ever since I started a Patreon page, I have also been sharing some of those references with my amazing patrons and making them available for download and royalty-free usage for your own art as well. So if you enjoy nature-themed art, even some figurative art, I give away references that you can have and use for your own art however you want. Those are available there on my Patreon, and I also have videos about how I actually edit them. I hope this video was a little bit helpful for you. I know I've said very similar things in previous videos before, and I don't mean to repeat myself, but there are so many different aspects of the painting process, and a lot of times they tend to be interconnected and related to each other, so it's kind of impossible not to go over the same subjects because they all relate somehow. So please let me know in the comments what topics you would like me to talk about in these videos, or feel free to ask any questions that you have for me. Maybe I will do another Q&A in a future Sketchbook Sunday. If you want to share your methods of new ideas for paintings, I would love to know that. I love when you guys talk to me about your art process. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video, and I hope you have a beautiful week. Bye guys.